In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that, and we had tremendous, look, we had the best economy we've ever had, the world has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Because I hired 10 to 1 that were fantastic. We had a great economy. We had phenomenal people in charge of the economy. We had phenomenal people in the military. I'm not a fan of Milley, and I'm not a fan of certain of the television people. But I knocked out ISIS. I defeated ISIS. They said, Mattis, it would take 3 years, and I don't think we can do it. I did it in a period of like 4 weeks.
There's a lot of people who praise you for your policies. I just said that.
That's true. Well, I mean, you just went through a list. But don't forget, for every one you say, I had 10 that love us.
This is Fox's Bret Baier completely annihilating Donald Trump by simply listing out some of the many of the quote-unquote best people who Trump hired to work for him, only for those people to turn around and warn everybody else how dangerously incompetent he is. After all, if anybody would know, it is the best people. And of course, as Baier said at the start of this clip, Trump vowed to appoint and surround himself with those people as president, and just for posterity, it was something he repeated over and over again.
We need our best people. I know the best people. We know the best negotiators in the world. We have great people. We have the greatest business people in the world right here. Right here. We don't use them. We don't use them. We are going to start using them big league. And by the way, we don't want to ever forget, we're going to have strong borders. We're going to get the best people. We're going to make the best deals. I joke sometimes, I go, we're going to win, and we're going to win again and again and again, and you're going to be begging me, please, Mr. Trump, please, President Trump, no more victories. We can't take any more victories. I know the best people. I know the best managers. I know the best deal makers. I know people that will make us so strong. I know guys that are so good as managers. A lot of times a deal maker isn't a good manager. And then a manager isn't a good deal maker.
So which is it? Does he surround himself with the best people, or are those people losers, idiots, and milquetoast? Because I'm starting to get some mixed signals here. Now, Trump's response is that he picked the best people at a 10-to-1 ratio. But let's remember who these people are that Bret Baier listed off. These aren't just random low-level picks. These are his top appointees for the most important jobs in the entire world. His Secretary of Defense, otherwise known as the person who literally oversees the most powerful military in the history of the planet. His Secretary of State, the president's chief diplomat representing the country across the globe. His press secretary, the person who literally speaks on his behalf on a daily basis on national television. His chief of staff, the person who oversees day-to-day operations at the White House. His attorney general, the top law enforcement official in the entire country. I mean, it just goes on and on. So for him to say, well, yeah, these were bad picks, but everybody else was fine, is just such transparent bullshit that it's almost offensive. And look, in terms of why Trump won't even offer a passing mention to acknowledge that he regrets his decisions, maybe there's some small part of him deep down that knows that these people are actually telling the truth about him. I mean, after all, they've seen him up close and personal. Hell, they've probably seen his actions as president closer than maybe any other people on the planet. And they're willing to risk their own reputations within the Republican Party to speak out against him. And not for nothing, but you're probably not looking to torch your career in Republican politics unless it's absolutely necessary. And look, none of this is to say that people like Bill Barr and Rex Tillerson and Elaine Chao are heroes or even remotely good people. It is just to say that Donald Trump is so bad, so repulsive, so dangerous for this country that even these people who have been longtime right-wing operatives doing lots of bad things for America, even they have to admit that this person they used as a vehicle for their own ambitions is actually so awful that they can't stand by him anymore. And that should really tell you everything you need to know. In fact, this isn't even new. Joe Biden used some of these quotes, particularly from military officials, in his campaign against Donald Trump back in 2020.
General John Kelly, Donald Trump's former White House chief of staff, calls Trump unhinged, said his dishonesty is astounding. General James Mattis, who served as Trump's Secretary of Defense, says Trump is dangerous and calls him unfit to be commander-in-chief. Donald Trump called those who served losers and suckers. Joe Biden believes they're heroes. The former commander of U.S. Special Operations Forces, Admiral Bill McRaven, supports Joe Biden. So does retired General Stan McChrystal, who led our forces in Afghanistan. He says, I can trust Joe Biden. 22 four-star generals and admirals say Biden would make a better commander-in-chief. It's no wonder Military Times says more active duty service members are supporting Joe Biden.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
And by the way, since 2020, there have only been more quotes like these to use, so if Trump is the nominee, I think it's safe to say we can expect more ads along these same lines. This entire situation just goes back to one fundamental trait of Donald Trump. He has to see himself as the victim. He's always under attack by some outside force. It's a witch hunt, or it's unfair, or it's whatever other nonsense he can conjure up. But over and over again, it is his own destructive, stupid, and reckless actions that are why he's constantly under siege. These are problems brought about by himself and himself alone. And to be clear, it's not just how he treats the people who worked for him. The stolen documents case being brought by the Department of Justice, including 37 federal criminal felony charges, is another example of this. If Donald Trump had just responded to the federal inquiry the same way that Joe Biden and Mike Pence did, then there would be no criminal charges today. But instead, Trump refused to hand over any of the documents, he forced the federal government to obtain a subpoena, and then still refused to cooperate, which then forced the federal government to obtain a warrant to search his home. That's what the charges are about. It's not just the documents he had, but how he refused to cooperate with law enforcement, a problem entirely of his own creation. So again, this is all self-inflicted. Donald Trump is his own worst enemy. And when even Fox, the network that was just ordered to pay $787.5 million for their dangerous lies, is calling him out to his face for how obviously dangerous he is to the country, maybe it's time to do just a little self-reflection. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.